G'day, I'm DK.
And I'm Ardeet.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, a segment from the Australia Talks podcast.
Yeah, this is one of our favourite parts of bringing the podcast to you, our listeners.
So please enjoy this segment from the regular podcast.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, fair man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had...
All right, this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, we're heading to the western side of the Eyre Peninsula in South Australia, just off the Flinders Highway to the small seaside town of Streaky Bay. The town of Streaky Bay is a major population centre and is the capital district of Streaky Bay. And it is very much the heart of the agricultural farming district, which focuses mostly on cereal crops and a little bit of sheep, as well as having a fairly well-established fishing and tourism industry as well. Some good waves, I have been told. But for thousands of years, the area around Streaky Bay was inhabited by the Wirangu people. The first recorded European sighting, though, was made by a Dutchman, Peter Nutz, in, do you want to guess, Ardeet, what year he was there?
Oh, the Dutch. That's a funny one. I think Dirk Hartog might have been a Dutch bloke. He was. Yeah, I'm going to take a guess that it was first sighted in 1690.
Ooh, it is in the 1600s, 1627.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very early in terms of European exploration.
Wow, 1627.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. He was in the Golden Zipard, which is the golden seahorse. But it wasn't until nearly 2 centuries later, in 1802, that Captain Matthew Flinders rediscovered the area and named it Streaky Bay whilst he was examining the South Australian coast.
That's amazing, isn't it? I'm sorry to jump in there, but I hear these sometimes, and you're saying nearly 2 centuries later, and it's just almost unfathomable. But you sort of forget, how much of an adventure, or how difficult it was to go out there, and how unknown it was, and it was still being discovered, and communication was, hundreds of times slower than what you've got now. And there was probably someone sort of thinking, wow, we've got here already. That's not a bad effort. That's but 200 years.
It is. It's significantly long time. But again, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. The distances traveled were significant. Even in Flinders' case, the establishment of the colonies was well underway by that point. But even Sydney to sail around from Sydney Harbour down sort of, around through the Bight and come up to this area of Streaky Bay it's a bloody long way, especially in the age of sail. So his ship was called the Investigator, which I think is very apt. And he's the one that gave it the name Streaky Bay, and it's because of the streaks in the water that we believe was to do with reflection of light and possibly the seaweed in the local area. It does seem to be not 100% agreed on exactly what was causing the streaks in the bay itself, on the water and on the beach, but it's definitely something to do with the seaweed and the light, we think.
So you don't see it nowadays?
I think you do on certain tides and certain like blooms of seaweed and things like that. I think you can sort of get streaks in the water. But his captain's logs very specifically said the 5th of February 1802, it said, quote, "And the water was much discoloured with streaks. So I called it Streaky Bay." End quote. I just love it. Yeah. I love that so much because, I guess for these guys as well, like you would have to have You would get sort of a fatigue of coming up with names for all these places that you were discovering, because a lot of these places, they were, people like Matthew Flinders, they discovered a lot and they had to name a lot. And so, you'd just be like, what am I going to call this place? I
call this Rocky Point.
Exactly.
Inspired, sir.
So if we fast forward a few more years, on the 25th of August, 1839, Edward John Eyre, who explored overland from Port Lincoln, arrived at the locality, and he established a small base about 3 kilometers from what is now the Streaky Bay town, which he used as a store for his overland expedition to Point Bell. This site became known as Eyre's Watering Hole, and it has been preserved, and you can see it today. It is just off the road to Point Kenny in the local area. It is one of the sites to see. There's not much to see, but it's there. From 1850 to 1860, a whaling station was established and operated near the local Point Brown, and it's believed that these whalers were most likely the first European settlers to remain in the area for any sort of length of time. The country around Streaky Bay was opened up by pastoralists around 1854 and from then on, with the biggest station being called Maryvale. It comprised 470 square kilometers, which is absolutely huge. This run represented the pick of grazing lands where water was available at a shallow depth, because this is a pretty arid area. We've spoken about the Eyre Peninsula before, but it really is quite arid. As these lands were opened up and more people came to the area, the establishment of a town was necessary. And in the 1870s, a small oyster factory was established in now the small town of Streaky Bay. And they canned oysters for export. Call me a purist, but canned oysters, doesn't sound great. But
I have had them before. In the country that was sort of what you'd get sometimes. Talking 70s, late 70s,
1870s. Yep.
Yeah, 1870s. That's right. I'm 150 years old. They're not. I don't think I ever would go back to them.
Nah, I don't think, there's a reason they're not. Yeah. They're not everywhere. Streaky Bay, originally the town was actually called Flinders. Of course it was. But in the 1940s, because the locals didn't call it Flinders, they called it Streaky Bay. So the name was actually officially changed back to Streaky Bay, which I like. I like that idea that the locals were like, no, we're not naming it after another thing after Matthew Flinders. Like, far out. It's bad enough that he named the bay Streaky Bay. But at least it's unique. It's unique.
Just go along Flinders Point, just past Flinders Road, and then you'll see the turn off to Flinders.
Basically. There was conflict in the local area with the settlers and the Aboriginal people. There were killings on both sides of the conflict. But there was a significant event that happened nearby in the Waterloo Bay, which is sort of about 10 Ks sort of south of it's actually probably closer to 20 Ks south of Streaky Bay, where there was a bit of a massacre of Aboriginal people in the late 1840s, which was probably more the whalers came into contact and sort of conflict with them rather than the pastoralists. But it's also a bit of a contentious event on exactly how many people were killed on both sides. It seems that at least 5 European settlers were killed, but the number of Aboriginals that were killed is very much up for debate. Some accounts say that it was only 5 that were killed, though there are estimates that are up to 260 were killed by the 1880s. So, look, I can't speak for incomplete history, and I don't want to go too much into this because this isn't specifically what this Two Ticks Town Talk is about, but I feel like I'd be amiss if I didn't mention the grisly past with the Indigenous people of the area. It was absolutely disgusting, and unfortunately a fairly common subject in small town Australia. As we've seen time and time again, as settlers came to settle areas, the local people weren't too happy about it, and rightfully so, quite frankly. And so conflicts did arise. Today, Streaky Bay is a pretty busy agricultural and fishing hub. That's sort of the heart of local industry. The local economy is absolutely dominated by wheat, barley, and other cereal grain production, as well as sheep. And olives are a new addition to the area, as it has a Mediterranean climate. It's very similar, I believe, to parts of like the Greek islands and things like that. It's also quite arid, like a lot of those areas as well. So olives, in my mind, kind of seem like the perfect crop, but they do take a long time to establish, and maybe that's why they've been reluctant to do it in the past. The area is also surrounded by excellent surf beaches, which are popular with the locals and tourists chasing good swells and good times, I imagine. Though the Australian Bight is notoriously full of great white sharks, so, at your own peril. I've been great.
Yeah, the slight downside.
Yeah, I've been great white shark cage diving just off the coast there, and yeah, they're there. So, take your precautions and all those things. Right. Enough about Streaky Bay. The real reason I wanted to talk about this place is because of the weird rocks that were nearby. That's right. This was a two-tick rock talk all along.
Oh, damn. He sucked us in again.
I gotcha.
Another one of these weird bloody rock ones.
I did have to pad this out because there really isn't much to talk about these rocks. And funnily enough, when I was looking for a topic, as I've said so many times before, oftentimes I just open Google Maps and I just start looking around and see what sort of pops up. I spend a lot of time. I waste a lot of time, I should say, doing this before I settle on a place. And honestly, what took my fancy with Streaky Bay was just it's got a weird name. Like, it's just interesting. Like, what's the deal with that? And it does look like a really, really beautiful place. So, no disrespect for the locals of Streaky Bay. One day I'll get to the Eyre Peninsula and I will definitely pop in. Well, I've been there. I've been to Port Lincoln before, but I want to get over to that side of the Eyre Peninsula as well. But I had to pad this out because there's not a lot to talk to about these rocks, but they look really cool, and so I wanted to talk about them. So the local legend goes that once upon a time there was a traveller that was travelling along the road who asked their driver how the local farmer had grown so much wheat, as they could see these huge piles, haystacks, piled over 8 meters high, these massive, massive stacks of hay. The driver laughed and said, "That's not hay, these are rocks, and they're located on the Murphy family's property on their farm." But the name sort of stuck, and today we call these rocks Murphy's haystacks. They were carved by wind and time, these pink granite pillars. Basically, big. Oh,
okay.
Big boulders.
Sorry, I've just clicked the link that you've, and this will be in the show notes. I can see that.
It definitely looks, from a distance, you could understand how these could be mistaken for a large haystack. But these large pink granite pillars, the boulders, they hold great cultural significance for the Wirangu people, the traditional custodians of the land, and of course, the local people there today as well. For thousands of years, the area around the rocks was an important site for storytelling and connection to country, with the unique rock formations inspiring indigenous legends and traditions. They're basically big weathered granite outcrops. They are made of pink, massive, coarsely equigranular rock, which in layman's terms just means rocks that are made of equal size pieces of like their constituent rocks. They are mostly made of quartz and orthoclase. Their appearance may be due to a combination of erosion by underground rainwater and then subsequent weathering after they were exposed. Interestingly, most of the pillars emerge without breaking from the underlying granite under the ground. And according to C.R. Twydale and Elizabeth Campbell in the Transactions of the Royal Society of South Australia, they said, quote, "They could be remnants modified by subsurface moisture attack of massive convex upward sheets of rock," end quote.
Oh, that would have been my first guess.
Yeah, so there you go. If you're doing a PhD in geology and you need a thesis subject, feel free to get around to the Streaky Bay to find out about Murphy's haystacks and what exactly they are. I would love for you to excavate them and find out what's going on, because apparently the science isn't quite settled yet. I would encourage you, as Ardeet said, to have a look in the show notes, as always, to see what these rocks look like, because they're pretty cool. Like, they're a bit sort of weird, particularly because they're just like, I feel like it looks like some giant just dropped like a bag of marbles into a field or something.
Yeah, but they got that skinny look. Like they're almost like it's almost like the bottom of it's like a marble. It's sort of been squeezed and it's just sort of popped up through the top of your hand. So you've still got that that neck around there, but it's sticking out at the top. Like it's not quite a light globe. It's almost like It's almost spherical at the top, but connected by a thick neck. They're a weird-looking rock.
They are weird. They are weird, and they're also sort of covered in like moss and lichen, which kind of really blends into the landscape.
Quite beautiful, really.
They are. I think they're really beautiful. But you're right. They're weathered in such a way that they're almost like mushroom-like in some ways.
Oh, mushroom! God, that's a better description.
Yeah, and one of them does have quite a significant overhang as well. But they're just out in the field. They're unusual because they're unique in their landscape. They seem so out of place compared to a lot of the other things we've talked about. They're just there, and there's sort of nothing else like it. You'd understand if there was a huge amount of them, but they're not. There's just a handful of them, and they're just sort of there. The good news is you can go and visit them. They are on private property, but there is no cost to access them. The Murphy family still owns the property, as I understand it, and they have opened it to public access. There is free public access, and there is even a toilet on site as well. So get out there, grab your surfboard, head down to Streaky Bay, see some more of this incredible country, sample the local culture and sites, food. I'm sure there's probably amazing seafood in the district around there.
Olive oils, oysters, uncanned.
Uncanned or canned if you prefer. I'm sure someone somewhere has a 150-year-old can of oysters.
That's still right. It hasn't swollen up yet.
It's fine. So thank you for listening to another Two Ticks Rock Talk on Weird Rocks, this time in Streaky Bay, South Australia on the Eyre Peninsula. Get out there and see more of this beautiful country.
Yeah. It's interesting how they just sort of like popped up, like
Almost grew out of the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
That was a better description of yours, the mushroom or the fungus type of thing. Those ones that are sort of not your typical mushroom shape, but those ones that you see toadstools that are still got the big head on it. But so, yeah, that's interesting. I also, too, just had look up, when we're talking about that, 200 years, they went and they explored there, and then 200 years later, they're starting to establish it there. I did think, I'll just check the dates, and it was 2069 that the first landing on the moon was, but it's
1969.
Sorry, 1969. Thank you. Yeah, 2069.
I was like, whoa, Ardeet, you're from the future.
I'm from the future and simultaneously 150 years old. 1969, and the first base is expected to start around about 2034. So even in modern things, that's still 65 years. So I can imagine in the a couple of hundred years in the future, they'll probably look back and think they'll have somebody saying, wow, it took them 65 years from discovery till they made a base on the moon. So I thought that was an interesting little
modern parallel. Yeah.
Yeah, parallel with what you brought up before at the start of the Two Ticks Town Talk.
No, it is a wild time difference of, yep, we came, we saw, we left, and then 200 years later we came back and obviously very much established ourselves. The British colonists were very keen to hang around and weren't going anywhere anytime soon. So, and still haven't left. It is wild when you think about it in terms of that amount of time. Particularly with, I think, the modern moon landings is actually a really good idea to put it into perspective. One thing that's interesting about Streaky Bay is, at least currently, I didn't really have a good place to put this in, but I'll mention it here now, is the Streaky Bay golf course is like literally in the middle of town. So the main town is sort of wrapped around the bay, and it looks like the golf course was established probably quite long ago, before the town sort of developed more than it has. And as a result, it's only like 2 streets back from the beach and sort of again follows the town wrapped around the bay. Whereas most golf courses are kind of like on the periphery of town or whatever. But in this case, it's very much smack bang in the middle of town, almost as if the town was built around the golf course, which is, I don't know, it's just interesting. A bit of a quirk of town development. We'll see how that continues in the future. I'm not sure if it'll last forever. I feel like there might be a point where people just go, nah, you know what? We're building more houses here. You'll have to move your golf course. But at least for now. What would you say
the population was?
It is 2,436 as of the 2021
they got a while then.
I think so. I think there's plenty of space. So, and in the surrounding area, there's lots of farmland, lots of cereal grain. Mostly, it's sort of dominated by a patchwork of basically wheat and barley fields and smattering of other cereals. But yeah, no, look, interesting place, interesting sort of town. If you're from that area, I'd love to know what's the best spot to go when you come to this area. Because it looks like there's a lot of beautiful beaches. But where do the locals go? Give me the secret before I head down there. Let me know. I won't tell anyone, I promise. I won't say. Just let me know. I want to know the locals' insider knowledge.